I'm Dr. David Rosensweet, and you've tuned into I Wonder Doctor Live for our 2 o'clock segment every Thursday afternoon. And in this segment, I love to address one of the bigger issues that for all of us human beings, and especially in the health world, is how to have an appropriate and non-biological response to the challenges, to the stresses in our life. So I'd like to talk about issues of emotions, the mind, your life, and if you have any questions for me, please call in at 888-502-8886. If you call in, that's one of the best ways to get the answer, because I can zero in on what really matters to you. Or you can email us at iwonderdoctor.com through Ask the Doc with questions that you have, and these are archived. If you missed the live show, you can pick them up on Facebook or YouTube. And today, the subject I want to talk about is what is heroism? And one of the things I've seen over the course of my lifetime is the hero is elevated to special status and is 360 surround sound everywhere we go. We go to the movies, what do we see? These huge productions of major heroic acts where all the good people are this and the bad people are this, and there's a lot of shoot 'em up and a lot of noise along the way, sound and fury along the way. The hero is elevated to a special status, and also, so we see this in the media everywhere. And we also see it, another form of it, in the movies around romantic love. It's if all of what love is that time when you first meet somebody and you have that special connection, which there's tremendous merit in, but there's so much more to love and being loving than that. That rises up to heroic proportions. And so often it ends with the kiss or the makeup or the marriage, and then doesn't show anything beyond that for the day-to-day life. And yet, as human beings, we're involved in the day-to-day life. And one of the things that dawned on me for myself and for my patients is there are 10 to 50 moments where I can rise to the level of making what I like to call a heroic choice every single day. And it's occurring within the context of my life. There's that moment where, for example, I start to feel myself getting irritable at work, at home, when I'm out shopping, whatever it is I'm doing, running errands, and I get conscious that I hear a sentence in my head saying, "David, you're a little grouchier than how's that for the people who are meeting up with you today?" I'm able to recognize and see and feel exactly what I'm doing in the moment. And the heroic choice is being able to say, I'm going to pause right now. I'm not going to say anything more with this energy, with this intensity. I'm going to go silent. I'm going to rein it in. Whatever, the sentences don't matter. The heroic act is to recognize when I'm going off the rails and stop and pull it back in. Sometimes, the other night I had quite a major intense day, and I came home from work and I was exhausted, and I caught that moment where I was starting to get a little grouchier at home. And it took a heroic effort to not go down the beaten path of getting grouchier, stirring up the people I love in my life, and then getting them upset. And so they get upset with me and I get more upset. And you've been there, perhaps a few of you who are watching this, you know what I mean, where out of nowhere comes this upset that is so silly because it's not based on anything of substance. My feelings got hurt, someone didn't respect me, or give me the amount of love or attention, or they said something different than me, they had a different opinion. I'm elaborating on this one because it takes many forms, what I called going slightly off the rails. And what I did that night that I was talking to you about is I noticed, and it took everything for me to decide not to say anything more, to be civil, and it took a while to calm down. And it's a biological thing, because if you trigger the fight or flight biology with the adrenaline, for example, in your own body, it takes a little while for your body to deconstruct that adrenaline. Meanwhile, you're sitting there floating in the fight or flight biochemistry. And so I had to, I built this skill, so I knew how to do it. It doesn't make it easy in the moment. I had to live through the internal biochemical processing and deconstructing of the adrenaline, the chemistry of getting upset. So it was an art not to say something, snap out at somebody, blame somebody else, provoke somebody else. And I just went silent. And because in that silence, and this is part of the heroism, if I'm not blaming out, I'm left with what's actually going on in me. And what often is going on in me is, when I get down to the bottom line, I'm feeling fear, or I'm feeling anger. And that's the biggest thing that I have to contend with, is the actual uncomfortable feeling. So part of the heroic act begins with recognizing what I'm feeling, stopping any behavior that's being fueled by the uncomfortable feelings, going silent in this case, and staying conscious of, being present with, feeling exactly what's going on in my being, the fear in that case and the anger, and accepting it. And what accepting it means is, I'm feeling it, and I'm letting it be the exact energy it is. And if I take it that far, and you've heard this from me before, in my mind I know I'm home free. I don't feel I'm home free until I've settled down. And then a half hour later, it was like I reemerged and could be kind. Because in the moment when that adrenaline is fomenting, there's no amount of pretending I can do in my household with my people, my family, that they can't see right through. So I can't pretend that everything is hunky-dory. I had to go totally silent. And it didn't feel good. So what's the ultimate muscle that requires developing? What's the act of heroism? It's the ability to recognize the truth in any given moment, including if it's an uncomfortable truth, to feel and recognize and be conscious of the uncomfortable aspect of it, which is always going to get more specific than uncomfortable. It's always going to boil down to uncomfortable feelings and uncomfortable thoughts, and also some internal biologic stuff galore. The uncomfortable feelings and the uncomfortable thoughts is where the leverage is. Because if you can feel and accept and allow the uncomfortable feelings to be what they are, they will melt. You're taking personal responsibility for what's going on in your body, in your being, and it works every time. There's other tools, I've mentioned them before. I'd like to interject one, an act of heroism, is you recognize that you're up in your mind, you're uncomfortable, you're blaming this person, you're thinking about the future, about how you're going to straighten something out, you're upset with someone in the past that you just went through a thing with, and you go, not doing this, not going down these empty mental trails where I'm trying to figure out or I'm blaming. I'm not doing it. So the heroic act, in this instance, and this is another tool, not one that I've invented, my God, it's been around for 2,000 years minimal, is I actively choose to shift my attention from this person I'm upset with or this thing I'm worried about. I take my attention and I put it into now. And a good place to anchor into now is what's going on in my body. So I'll feel my body. I'll sense my body. Or I'll put my attention on my breath. This is so ancient, a suggestion. And I'll just try and breathe and pay attention to the air going into my nostrils, going out of my mouth. I turn my focus away from the wild ideas and stories and mental thoughts and into my breath. I turn my attention on my breath. That's an act of heroism. That can take you out of dysfunctional thinking, uncomfortable feelings, and most important, some funky behavior that disturbs someone else in your life, that provokes them, hurts them, and hurts yourself in the process. Absolutely. And it puts on something that's actually taking place in the present. My breath. Acts of heroism. Why do I call them heroic? Because anyone who has ever accomplished this and paid attention to the process while they're doing it, you know, it takes some effort, it takes some strength, it takes some will to make that kind of turn internally. And for my dime, I'd love to see these exaggerated, intensified, over-dramatic extolling of the heroes that are shooting guns and wielding swords and killing dragons, or those that are romantically falling in love when they're 22 because they look so physically beautiful, and taking our attention off of this stuff and teaching people how to do it in our own lives. There's definitely other acts of heroism. We were in a business meeting yesterday, my business partner and I, my son, Joshua, and it was a high-powered situation where we were being asked to do some things to build this big thing. And it was ever so alluring, but I'm looking at Joshua's face and he's not looking comfortable. And I'm feeling my own self, and I'm not feeling comfortable. And whenever I look at Joshua and he's not feeling comfortable, I know I better pay attention because something not so good is going on. And sure enough, eventually they even asked, you don't seem to be feeling very comfortable about what we're proposing. And Joshua spoke it out, that it was an issue of integrity. They were trying to take a shortcut in medicine that we didn't feel was appropriate. And so we couldn't sign on and be part of their thing. And I just thought it was such a moment of choosing what felt right to us rather than going for something that was alluring but wasn't right. This was subtle. If you were watching it on TV, you may even have missed the thing that both of us picked up on, which was a little technical point that turned out to be a big deal. You might have missed it, not being familiar with this branch of medicine that we were talking about. So these are occurring in your life, where someone is saying rumors about someone, or someone's bad-mouthing someone, and you just don't jump on. Or if they say, well, how come you're not talking about this person too? Why, I just don't think it's going to get us anywhere. Oh, I don't like to. I feel uncomfortable when I'm just saying uncomfortable things about someone. So there will be so many instances, or your spouse or best friend or partner or significant other or business associate calls you on something, and they say something like, you were a little grouchy in that meeting, and as a result you weren't paying attention to what Jane over there was saying, and I did pay attention to what Jane was saying, and she was calling us out on something. And she saw it, and it was the truth, and I got uncomfortable. And you looked uncomfortable, but you were avoiding it. Someone in our close-in circle is saying something that are identifying in us that didn't feel beneficial to them. How do we usually feel when someone is, quote, criticizing us or correcting us or giving us really important, useful, truthful feedback? Well, I know how I feel a lot of the time. In some form or another, it hits a shame button in me. Like they're putting their finger on something that's wrong with me, and I've got a lot of uncomfortable feelings about that. I bet you many people do. So I feel uncomfortable. So here's an act of heroism. You let it be said. You don't block it. You listen to it. You hear it. You let it in. If it's not the truth, it's not going to take you on any ride. You'll smile. No, it's not the truth. But if it takes you on a ride, there's liable to be some validity to it. An act of heroism is allow the people in your life to tell you about things that you're not aware of, that you're not conscious of, the behavior that is uncomfortable for them. That's called taking responsibility for your own effect. That's an act of major heroism. So what I'm saying is we don't have to go to the movies. We don't have to conquer another country. We don't have to go to war with anybody. We don't have to be at eternal odds with people who have different opinions than we do. We don't have to magnify and amplify and blow these things up to big events and big dramatic events. Within everyone's life, there are subtleties that are going on throughout the day. I faced 10 of them today already. That I can get it. I can make a quiet choice. I can make a subtle choice to not going in the direction of unbeneficial, to quiet myself down, to take responsibility for my own discomfort, to own it, to surround it, to keep things sane and sober and kind and respectful. There's every single one who's watching this. There will be 20 times before the end of this day when, if you're paying close attention, you'll see, look at that. I could go off in one direction with my voice, with my attitude, with my mind, with how I respond to this person, what I do or don't do, but I'm not. I'm going to do whatever it takes to move this world, this planet, this universe, myself, my people, in the direction of benefit, in the direction of kindness, the direction of understanding and compassion. Heroic choices of the highest order. We don't have to run into a burning building and save everything and everybody, because in the day-to-day life, no matter who we are and what we're doing, all of us are faced with these opportunities. And what do you do if you keep learning how to make heroic choices and forgiving in the moment is what I'm saying, and forgiving yourself for when you make a mistake so you don't go on a ride because you didn't do it perfectly. You continue to make beneficial choices. What happens to you? You get stronger in making those choices. Those are the muscles you're building. And everything gets safer, and everything gets kinder, and everything gets less externally dramatic and more understandable and something that's easy to be present with. And ultimately, you gain so much more access to the beauty of this world and the people within it. So it's a big story. This is all about, let's get heroic where it really matters. Under the microscope in our own lives, moment to moment. This is the world we want to build. This is the world we want to heal. And what else happens? Just to relate it back to medicine. You calm yourself down. You don't get bent out of shape and squirt out a ton of adrenaline and cortisol and lots of other biochemicals that, yes, they can launch you and give you the energy for fight or flight, launch you into it. But you don't want to do that day after day, because these are our basic daily feel-good chemicals. You don't want to deplete yourself, you'll deplete your energy. So it turns out that these heroic life choices, the moment-to-moment ones, turn out to be so healing for your body. Instead of putting out adrenaline and cortisol and neurotransmitters every 10 minutes, small, medium, or huge, you're not doing it. And those beautiful biochemicals get to serve the natural living, breathing, walking, talking, moving, acting, creating process, including your brain, which needs a tremendous amount of energy. It serves that. So everything gets better, including your health. That's why, personally, I go into these realms, because they're the moment-to-moment on whether in any given day I build energy, thus build health, or lose energy. How many times a day do you build energy? You make a choice, you have a thought, you have a feeling, you do an action that makes you feel good, makes someone else feel good, or that you don't feel good about. You lose energy. This is the new heroism. And just as to recap, last week Kim and I saw a movie that just knocked my socks off. It wasn't these big melodramatic fight 'em, shoot 'em up, bang bang explosions. It wasn't one of these romantic stories that we've heard a million times over. Not that I don't think that's a beautiful and smaller part of life, but beautiful. It was about a woman who had the day-to-day issues that we all have. It was about how she succeeded at moving from lower self-esteem to making choices that she had more self-esteem. It's Amy Schumer's I Feel Pretty. Of course, we all have our own tastes in movies, but I thought it was a real masterpiece, and it was a movie industry choice that helped people, helped us deal with our lives as we're actually living them. We're not out there knocking out spaceships out of the sky or, the horrendous other things that show up in the movies. We're in there living our daily lives and going to work. And she did just a masterful job at illustrating how simple internal choices and discoveries can lead to something that's meaningful, ultimately to love. So, if you have any questions that you'd like to work with, you can email us, or you can go through Ask a Doc and I Wonder Doctor, or you can call in at 888-502-8886. We're here every Thursday at 2 o'clock discussing subjects like this, and I'd love to talk to you if you'd like to call in. And until next week, I'm Dr. David Rosensweet. It's always an honor and pleasure to be with you.